welcome to another episode of the M&A Mastermind Podcast, your go-to source for all the latest industry trends and strategies to help you level up your M&A practice. I am your host, Nick Olsen, Managing Director of Cornerstone International Alliance, the only international alliance of M&A firms who focus on the lower middle market. In this setting, we bring in masterminds who are experienced, knowledgeable, and gracious enough to share how they have succeeded in the world of M&A to help us better our practices. Today's guest is someone I've recently been able to spend some time with. He began his career at Deloitte doing valuations and consulting, transitioned to private equity, and was heavy in the aerospace and defense sector. Then he went into the tech space where he was a startup in tech as a CEO. He holds a bachelor's degree and master's degree from the University of Texas. He enjoys spending quality time with his wife and newborn daughter. Apparently he has mad pickleball game, is a pretty solid golfer, and most importantly, a fellow cheesehead. Please help me in welcoming Teddy Saltzstein, with partner with Six Pillars Partners based in Dallas. Teddy, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you, Nick, for having me. I'm glad you mentioned the Packers because
there you go.
And then more importantly,
he's no longer on the team, just so you know.
Well, I know.
There you go, Jordan Love. There you go.
Much more important. So
the future.
That's right.
Hopefully 3 Hall of Fame quarterbacks in a row.
That's the plan.
So I mentioned in the welcome that you and I had to spend some time together recently in Scottsdale. We here at Cornerstone hosted our annual in-person conference, and you were able to join us for our Shark Tank event, which we'll dive into in a second here. But it was great spending some time with you. We got up to Top Golf, and you're probably one of the better golfers that we had there, even though I think I beat you. But there's no record of that, so I'm just going to say I did. But tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of background, and tell us more about Six Pillars and what you guys are looking at.
Yeah, happy to. And thanks for having me out in Scottsdale. I thought it was a great event, great group, and it was great to be on the panel there. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So my background, born and raised in Texas, from San Antonio, went to school in Austin, was there doing accounting and finance, and just kept going north, made it to Dallas after college. Like you said, spent time at Deloitte, worked for a family office doing private equity for 5 years. Spent a year doing entrepreneurial stuff, led a startup, and kind of made my way back into private equity with Six Pillars. I've been with Six Pillars for about 4 or 5 years now. It's a great group. Our Six Pillars are 6 core values. So we're highly focused on partnering with people that have aligned values. And really it just boils down to being intentional, right? About what we're doing, who we're doing it with, and just it just makes life a lot more fun when you align with people that you like and people that share your value set. So
what kind of deals are you looking for? I know before we said you're looking for some opportunities right now. Did I have any? I said I'm going to check out for you. But what are you guys at Six Pillars currently looking for as far as opportunities go?
Yeah, so our focus largely is on business services, and within business services, we focus a lot on white collar services. So think kind of people in an office. Right now in our portfolio, we have a marketing agency. We've owned and sold multiple companies in human capital management. We had a staffing business that focused in the multifamily space. We had applicant tracking software that we've since exited, and we currently have a payroll processing business that provides payroll processing and also other back office services. So a lot of white collar services. And then this past year, I led an investment in a re-roofing business that has a lot of attributes of kind of white collar services, in that it's asset light, has a ton of recurring revenue, but obviously is more of a blue collar services business. So that was kind of our first foray, and I think We're looking to do more facility services, blue collar services. But yeah, white collar services, blue collar services, size wise, 4 million of EBITDA for a platform. Our average on entry has kind of been 6 to 7, and we probably could do anything up to like 20 million of EBITDA for a platform, and then add-ons, no size constraint. Well, we've done deals as small as $500,000 enterprise value, and as long as there's something accretive or synergistic with the platform, we'll lean in.
Sounds good. Appreciate the context there, and I'll do my best to get some opportunities in front of you. And I know you're on our newsletter, but we have a pretty substantial current engagements newsletter that we send out monthly, 50, 60, 70, 80 deals, active deals at any given point in time. And that's something that our alliance kind of brings together and brings to the table for people like yourself. I would imagine it's a lot nicer to look at one spot where you got 80 deals and try to go to 25 firms individually and trying to find out opportunities that way.
Yeah, definitely. I think, we're a small team. We have 4 investment professionals. There's thousands of private equity firms. We know that there's, thousands of investment banks and business advisors out there. So it's impossible to really cover everyone. So, back to just being intentional, we try to focus on a small set of people we like and that we think, would lead to, getting a deal done, right? Because we're in the business of getting deals done, and we want to feel like there's some sort of actionability and return on the investment and a relationship. So, yeah, definitely good to be on the list. I think it's a lot more efficient to kind of see all the deals from your cohort versus just managing that on a one-off basis. But definitely want to build a relationship with each group there, because it seems like just a good group in general.
Yeah. And just to set the tone for our conversation here today, like I said, you joined us at our in-person conference on a panel of 4 private equity firms, all uniquely yourselves and a little different from each other. But we call it our annual Shark Tank event, where we presented the 4 of you with a deal, an opportunity that, in real life you might see come across your desk. And you received some information on the deal. You didn't have the opportunity to ask any questions, which is by design, but we just wanted to see what you thought of the deal and submitted an LOI based on, the information you had and terms and all that sort of stuff. You guys had the opportunity to go through your LOI and why you structured the deal as the way you did and things like that. And so listening in on the panel discussion, I found a couple of topics that were very interesting to me. And as M&A advisors, who our audience is for this podcast, looking to help them kind of understand from your perspective and taking that Shark Tank that we did and bringing it to the podcast form, think about different things that you guys are looking at. And when you're looking at all these deals that come across your desk, and, what are things that we can provide you guys to better, to make better informed decisions on whether or not you submit an IOI, LOI, or if you pass on it. And one of the topics, that we came up with, or that came up in the conversation, was projections. And, when you submit the information, like I said, you receive the teaser and a sim, and within there, you see the projections. And, as M&A advisors, what can we do? I guess, let me take a step back. What are your overall thoughts on, financial projections? Obviously going forward, and obviously it's hard to, guarantee any of that. It's impossible to guarantee any of that. And looking at our crystal ball and say, this is what we're going to do in year 2, 3, and 4 and beyond, or whatever. What is your just overall thought on including projections in a sim?
Yeah. That was an interesting part of the conversation during the panel. I think, the obvious is that we're buying these businesses for the future free cash flow and not the historical free cash flow. And we spend a ton of time, granular models and projections, trying to figure out, what are the headwinds, what are the tailwinds, where is the business going? So projections in general are very, very important to our underwriting. that said, understanding that this podcast is predominantly for M&A advisors, I would say, projections are only as good as the data that supports them. So if we see in a SIM that the business has been kind of volatile up and down over the past couple of years, and then the next 3 years is just going to be up and to the right, kind of a hockey stick type chart, we kind of lose confidence in the rest of the materials and really the projections themselves. So just going back to the point that projections are important, but it's important to try to be real and maybe a little bit conservative. But even more so than just being real is using data. So what does that mean? That means looking at historical lead generation, costs of customer acquisition. How many leads are they converting into a sale? How many sales folks do they have? What are volume trends? What are trends in pricing? And really doing a full kind of build up of your future revenue by segment, by slicing and dicing different ways, and trying to come up with. You don't want to boil the ocean, but you do want to. You kind of got to pick. You got to pick one. Pick a methodology that makes the most sense for projecting the future revenue of the business. Like I said, maybe that's by geo or by segment or by product type or service line or by salesperson, but play around with all those and see what makes the most sense. But and it's got to be collaborative. Obviously, you're going to need to rely on management, because ultimately we're going to not hold management accountable to it, but these are projections that we rely on in our underwriting. So we really look to the management team to go out and execute. So that the last thing you want is to get into a deal when your expectations are growth is going to be up and to the right, and then you get in and things don't go well, and you start looking at reasons why, and it's like, oh well, our assumption on pricing was wrong, or we only had 5 productive salespeople and not 7, or this geo doesn't really like our service line because the market is saturated, or whatever it may be. I think having good supportable data for the projections is important. And I realize that can be tough because a lot of these founder-owned businesses don't do granular budgeting. Their CRM and their ERP systems may not be that robust. They may not have data that will allow you to slice and dice, but to do what you can and really kind of focus on that first 12 to 24 months and try to get as granular as possible. Now, to the extent that it's not possible, then I would just, I would be straightforward about it and say, hey, this business, we don't have the data to reliably project. And, I don't know if that's something that is concerning for a buyer, but, I'd rather be eyes wide open and knowing like, hey, I'm really going to have to roll up my sleeves to get a sense of where this business is going over the next 12 to 24 months. So yeah, I guess to summarize, projections are important because those are the cash flows that we're buying. But they're only as good as the data and the thought exercise that supports it. So
yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. You mentioned projections, and I would venture to guess that you want real projections. You don't want pie in the sky type of things to make the business look better than it actually is. So as the term goes, go ugly early. If your projections aren't, possible, or for whatever reason, or not great, would you recommend, as an M&A advisor, advising your, and showing that and be transparent with that up front, so going into it like, hey, these projections are challenging and this is why, and we don't necessarily know what we don't know yet based off of X, Y, and Z? Or would you rather them try to, do the best they can with the information they have and project out? And, you know what I mean? Like, what would you prefer from your perspective to know, what's possible or, what's more real?
Yeah, definitely. What is more real? I'd rather know the bad news first, and it doesn't. Modest growth doesn't mean bad news. It just means that the company's going to have a modest growth profile, and therefore we should capitalize the company accordingly. You don't. Underwriting sets the stage for capital structure, and it also obviously sets valuation. And I'm sure as an M&A advisor, you want the highest valuation, right? Because that's your fiduciary duty to your client, in conjunction with finding the right partner and fit. But I think you'll save yourself a lot of time because, a lot of prospective buyers will get to the answer. So rather than, letting them kind of dig in and ask you questions and get to the answer the long way, I think it's easier just to paint the most real picture on the business. And otherwise you're kind of dancing around the point. But the point, it's not going to go unforeseen. And,
Right.
and I mentioned it earlier, like buyers will expect that the growth projections put forth are somewhat realistic and that they're achievable.
Mm-hmm. So, you mentioned a management team in place. I would imagine that you've seen and putting the projections based on what you expect the management team to achieve after the sale, right? And I would imagine you've seen both instances where maybe a projection was put out there, obviously with confidentiality. Sometimes the business owner doesn't want the management team to know what's going on. Have you come across an instance where the projections were there without the management team necessarily knowing what is going on and what kind of a challenge that might have posed?
Yes. That is a tough situation, and I can sympathize with business owners that are reliant on middle management and really upper management that they don't want to involve in the process, for obvious reasons, and therefore their projections are a bit of a guess because they need to rely on those people. But I think that's on the M&A advisor to really communicate that to prospective buyers. Hey, these projections are, at the best, they're the best guess based on the information that we have, which does not include a lot of the people that drive these, that are going to execute on these and that, really are in touch with the granular assumptions and details around it. But yeah, we encounter that. And
how do you view that?
If we were buying public companies, it would, definitely be easier, and everything would be on a silver platter. But that's not what this is. We have to, as you have to roll your sleeves up, and so do we. And we just have to navigate the situation we're in. How do we view that? I guess I would view that as, I'd almost, view it as a positive in one respect, in that the owner is the owner, founder, CEO, let's assume, has really built up some infrastructure, some people infrastructure around him or her. But also, it just leads to more questions in the same breath. Like, hey, it's hard for me to underwrite or feel good about the go forward until I talk to people that really know where this business is heading. So I don't know. I wouldn't say it's like it's
not going to scare you away necessarily.
No, not at all.
Yeah. But you'd rather know that at the front end, right? Than find out.
Yeah. And I think we talked about other things, and it kind of goes along the lines of don't put in projections that aren't realistic. Be real and lead with, what are the investment highlights, right? What are the positive factors, but what are the negative factors? Is there customer concentration? Is there, have they lost a recent customer? Is there whatever litigation? Who knows, right? But what are the negative things? Because no company is perfect. If they were perfect, they would be, you know, who knows, right? A public company or growing 50%. It just, a lot of the companies that we interact with, there's always something, right? And that's just life. That's just how business goes. And I think just being upfront and realistic about that is saves us time, saves you time, and then it becomes a collaborative exercise on, okay, here's the issue. Like, the company's only growing at 4%, but we want to grow at 10%. So let's all get around the table and figure out how we do that. Or, hey, like, we have customer concentration. How do we diversify away from this customer? How do we make this relationship more sticky versus finding out at the 10th hour, or the 11th hour, and, it being a surprise and feeling like it was hidden. And no one likes that. So just the sooner you can, the sooner the facts are the facts, the quicker you can get to addressing the facts.
Do you talk about projection, you see a 4% growth, and like I said, you want X amount of growth, whether it's 10 or whatever. Do you see that as an opportunity for you guys to come in and, put, like I said, roll up your sleeves and put your stamp on that? And do you see growth projections, not as high as what you think, or maybe you'd want, but you have the opportunity to grow it yourself? Do you see that as a positive? Or it depends?
Do I see
growth number lower than what you maybe would like, but you guys can get in there and put your, stamp on it, put your process in place to make it maybe grow a little bit more? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, if to the extent that we have some value add that we can add that is going to accelerate growth, that's definitely going to be exciting. But I don't, in the same breath that, if we see stuff that's up and to the right, and if we see a projection set that seems really bullish, and we feel like, hey, this is not achievable, we're going to lean in and do the work and make sure that we think it's, we'll come up with the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes sense, but
it does.
Yeah. The short of it is, yes, like we're going to do the work. We're going to figure out what value add we can bring, and then we're going to kind of level set expectations, not only with ourselves, but eventually before we close the transaction, we're going to sit down with our future partner, the business owner, and say, hey, this is kind of the growth expectation. Do you agree with this? Do you believe in this? Do we all believe in this? Okay, yes, we do. So let's go put a value creation plan and have quarterly action items and really go execute on this. So whether it's us that has some sort of special value accelerator, or it's them and we believe it, I think it's not as really that's not as important as just having aligned expectations.
Yeah, aligned expectations, absolutely. What about when you're talking projections, like how far out do you like to see? 6 months, 12 months, 3 years, 5 years? Like what do you guys want to see as far as how far out you want those projections to be, and that you put weight on?
Yeah, if it's a highly recurring revenue business and it's contractual and there is there's weight behind 3 to 5 years of projections, and we'll underwrite that. But typically, and what's most important is that you get out of the gates really strong. So we'll spend a lot of time on the first 12 months, the first 6 months, really. Okay. And those are months that should be more visible, more attainable. So certainly, 6 to 12 months is great to have. Anything beyond that, depending on the business profile, if it's more project based, we're not going to be as concerned of a granular answer. But if it is reoccurring, then it's nice to see someone kind of put a line in the sand.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned customer concentration before. What, as far as projections go, what do you look at as far as customer concentration goes that might say, yeah, we believe in those projections, or like maybe not because your customer concentration is kind of out of whack? How do you look at that?
So I wouldn't say that customer concentration will dictate the future growth profile one way or the other. I mean, we've seen businesses where, they may have a 50% customer, but that customer just continues to grow. And so the rest, which carries the entire business, and then the rest of the business is just trying to keep up with that customer just to keep it at 50% relative to the entire mix of the business.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't say customer concentration dictates our expectations for growth one way or the other. It would depend on that particular relationship. And if there's customer concentration, we're going to do a lot of diligence around, pricing power, the stickiness of the relationship, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Future volume trends, pricing, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As M&A advisors, I know you hit on a lot of stuff here, but what are some things that we can do related to projections that can best tell the story for you guys to make, your opinions on the company? Like anything that you see as common, flaws or maybe missteps that an advisor might take that really doesn't help out, telling the story and what the future might hold for a business? Anything you can, draw attention to that maybe, as an industry, we can help you out better to make those assumptions or come to those conclusions sooner rather than later?
Yeah. I kind of go back to what we talked about earlier, just really having some thesis around the future revenue growth. So kind of a build up, price, volume by segment or geo, and just drawing a line in the sand there, I think is helpful for us, and just kind of framing how we think about the business and the growth there. And then moving down the income statement, really it's, it's your cost of goods, right? And, to the extent you can articulate around margin profile by service line or by any, variable, right? That's going to be helpful for us. And then, as you keep going, just how much infrastructure does the business have today, from a SG&A perspective, and what does it need going forward to really grow? And sometimes that's, hey, we don't really have an institutional CFO. We need an institutional CFO. Or, we could really use some institutional expertise in sales and marketing. So we need a director of marketing to really help us, grow our organic lead count and conversion of leads. So it's really just kind of, I don't know if it's any one thing, but it's kind of walking down that income statement and acknowledging and what the business needs relative to that granular revenue build.
Mm-hmm.
Or does it not need? Maybe the business is ready to, and you see this a lot in Sims, is that the business needs no infrastructure investment. It's ready to grow at 20% a year. And, as you peel the layers back, it does probably need some investment, right? And we're very supportive of reinvesting back into the business, and we try to be net job creators. So definitely like to execute on heavy growth plans that involve bringing in more people that are going to create value and execute on a growth plan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate all of your insights today, Teddy, and great information.
Hopefully it was helpful.
Yeah, I think, my goal is always to come away with, a handful of takeaways, 1, 2, or 3. And I think you exceeded that, that today. And it's always good to help, learn from, people on your side of the table, and when we're looking at deals and how you guys look at it, and, really helps us as M&A advisors to, do our due diligence up front to best arm you guys with the information, make an informed decision, and also obviously doing right by our clients. And so a lot of great information was shared today. I appreciate you joining us for about 30 minutes here on the M&A Mastermind Podcast. If our listeners want to find you, learn more about you and Six Pillars and what you guys are looking for as far as opportunities go, where can we send our listeners to learn more?
Yes, our website is sixpillarspartners.com, and all of our contact info is there. I'm happy to talk to really anyone. We're out looking for new companies, new people to partner with, and at the same time looking for add-ons for our existing platforms. So would love to engage with anyone in your network, and thank you again for having me on.
Yeah. Awesome. And yeah, make sure to get Teddy and his team on your buyers list and get those opportunities in front of them. I've known from the time Teddy and I have worked together and interacted. Great guy, great firm, and I appreciate you joining today, Teddy. And that's all we have for today's episode of the M&A Mastermind Podcast. One thing that'll help both Teddy and myself out is to like, share, and comment this episode, and forward on anybody who you think might benefit from our conversation here today. Be sure to subscribe to our show on YouTube, and find all of our episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can also find all of our episodes at cornerstoneia.com/podcast. And like I said, we hope you found a couple of takeaways from today's discussion to help you level up your M&A practice. Thank you for listening, everybody. Until next time, take care.